How is it possible that in a single sprint classification Ferrari has gone from generating doubts to completely shocking the entire paddock with a car that seems from another category? Because what Ferrari engineers revealed after Miami 2026 is not normal. We are not talking about a simple aerodynamic improvement, we are talking about a radical change that turned the SF26 into something completely different in a matter of hours, a package so aggressive that even within the team itself they knew it could go wrong. But not only did it work, but it exposed an advantage that no one expected to see so soon. And the most shocking thing is not that they have brought 11 updates at once. What is truly worrying for their rivals is what these changes hide, because according to the engineers themselves, this could be the turning point that completely changes the 2026 season. Stay until the end, because what Ferrari tested in that sprint qualifying not only explains their performance jump, it explains why they might have found something that the rest still don't understand. The engineers were clear. The car did not respond when it should. There was speed, yes, but it was unstable, unpredictable at critical moments, especially when the drivers needed to squeeze the most out of a single lap. And in a sprint format where there is practically no room for correction, that becomes a sentence. Therefore, the decision they made was radical, not to evolve the car, but to transform it. This is where the concept that they themselves described as a kind of version B of the SF26 was born. It was not a progressive update like those usually seen during the season. It was a profound redesign that affected more than half of the car's components. This not only meant bringing in new pieces, but also changing the way they all work together, something extremely risky when you only have one session to validate everything before qualifying. Context also played a key role. Due to calendar adjustments, Ferrari piled on developments that were originally going to be introduced in previous races. This gave them something that very few teams have in the middle of the season: extra time. And not only time to manufacture parts, but to refine them, simulate them, and better understand how to integrate them. What seemed like a delay ended up becoming an opportunity to launch a much more complete and polished package. But here comes the critical point. The engineers were not sure how the car would react on a real track. Because the simulator is one thing, facing the conditions of Miami with heat, demanding asphalt, and a circuit where aerodynamic efficiency makes enormous differences, is quite another. Introducing 11 updates at once in that context is not bravery, it is playing everything on one card. And yet, they decided to do it. Did Ferrari just get it right with an upgrade package? Or has it just discovered an advantage that could completely change the 2026 season? The key moment came when Ferrari stopped analyzing data and began to see the reality on the track. Because one thing was everything they had planned in the factory, but another completely different was to check if this new concept of the SF26 could hold up under the real pressure of a sprint classification, where every detail counts and every mistake is paid dearly. And what happened was exactly what left everyone speechless. From the first laps launched, the engineers detected something they did not expect to see so quickly. The car was not only faster, it was easier to push to the limit. This completely changes the paradigm, because in Formula 1 pure performance is of no use if the driver cannot access it. And here Ferrari found something it had lost for a long time: total driver confidence in each phase of the lap. The first sector was the first great evidence. In high-speed areas, where previously the SF26 tended to become nervous, the car now remained planted, stable, allowing for much more aggressive entry without compromising exit. This comes directly from the work on the ground, which managed to maintain the downforce much more constantly, eliminating those sudden losses that previously forced you to lift your foot. But it was in the second sector where they really began to understand the magnitude of the change. In medium-speed corners, the car not only turned better, it turned with intention. Engineers explained that the new configuration allowed aerodynamic flow to be directed much more efficiently towards the rear, creating a balance that did not exist before. The result: fewer corrections, less tire wear during the lap, and above all, more precision in every apex. And then came the third sector, the straights. This is where the famous evolved rear wing showed its true impact. It was not just about gaining top speed, but about how that speed was generated. The car exited slow corners better and at the same time reduced drag more efficiently. This created a devastating combination: cleaner acceleration and higher top speed without penalizing the rest of the lap. Engineers began to see figures that, until then, had not appeared so clearly in any simulation. Sustained gains on the straight, improvements in stability under braking, and a much more controlled degradation in a single lap. All this in a session where they barely had time to adjust the car. And this is where the internal reaction completely changed. Because it's one thing to improve, and quite another to understand that you've unlocked hidden performance. The data began to show that the car had room for more, that they were not even at the limit of what that package could offer. And that, in the middle of the sprint classification, is what really set off the alarms in the rest of the teams. In addition, there was a detail that went unnoticed by many, but that the engineers highlighted as key: the car's operating window was significantly expanded. This means that they no longer depended on perfect conditions to perform, but could better adapt to changes in temperature, grip, or track evolution. On a sprint weekend where everything changes quickly, this advantage is pure gold. While other teams struggled to find the exact point of their cars with just one practice session, something that we already saw greatly complicates preparation in this format, Ferrari seemed to have a car that worked in almost any scenario. And that's what baffled the paddock the most. Because it wasn't just a fast lap, it was the feeling of total control. At the end of the session, the engineers were not talking about isolated numbers, they were talking about consistency, repeatability, a car that could deliver performance lap after lap without making mistakes. And in sprint classification, where everything is decided in thousandths, that makes the difference between competing and dominating. And this is where the analysis becomes even more interesting. Because if Ferrari achieved all this in its first real run of the package without fully exploiting its potential, then the real question is no longer what they did in Miami. The real question is, how far can this SF26 go when they fully understand what they just created? And this is where everything changes, because what Ferrari caused in that sprint classification does not remain a simple weekend surprise. It has direct consequences on the balance of power of the entire 2026 season. The engineers understood this almost immediately when analyzing the complete data after the session. They were not facing a specific improvement that could disappear in the next race, they were facing a new base of development. And this is key, because in Formula One, he who makes a leap does not win, he who finds a direction that can continue to exploit race after race wins. What Ferrari unlocked in Miami wasn't just performance, it was a platform. A platform that, in their own words, allows them to scale each component of the car without the limitations they had before. The new floor not only improves the present, it opens doors for future evolutions. The new aerodynamic concept not only gives speed, it allows further optimization without breaking the balance of the car. And that is exactly what worries his rivals the most. Because while other teams remain stuck in more rigid concepts, Ferrari now has room to improve without losing stability, margin to adapt the car to different circuits, room to evolve without having to reinvent the package every time. And when a team reaches that point, it stops reacting and starts imposing. In fact, internally they were no longer just talking about Miami. They talked about what comes next. How this package can behave on circuits with long straights, where the benefit in top speed can be even greater, but also on more technical layouts, where the stability of the new floor can make even bigger differences. And here appears another factor that further increases the impact of all this. Rivals have no immediate response, because copying a concept like this is not a matter of weeks. It's not about changing a spoiler or adjusting a setup. It is understanding a complete car philosophy, replicating it and making it work, something that can take months, even an entire season. And meanwhile, Ferrari is already one step ahead, developing the next evolution on a foundation that already works. The engineers dropped it indirectly but very clearly, this package is nowhere near its limit. What we saw in the sprint classification was only the first execution, an initial version that still has room for optimization in settings, integration and adaptation to different scenarios. And that's what really changes the picture. Because if Ferrari already managed to make an impact like this in its first real test, what will happen when they fully understand every detail of this new concept? At that point, the conversation stops being whether they can fight, and becomes whether someone can reach them. But there is something even more important, something that completely defines this moment. Ferrari has not only improved its car, it has regained control of its development. After seasons where they reacted to problems, where they pursued solutions without finding a clear direction, now they have something that is not seen in the data, but that marks championships. Technical clarity. And when a team like Ferrari finds clarity, history has shown us what can happen. So the big unknown is no longer what they did in Miami. The big question is whether we have just witnessed the beginning of a new era in 2026, or simply the first warning of something much bigger that is to come. The conclusion of everything we saw at Miami 2026 leaves no room for doubt. Ferrari not only surprised, Ferrari changed the rules of the game at a time when no one expected it. What the engineers revealed after the sprint qualifier confirms that this was not a stroke of luck or an isolated improvement, it was the result of an extreme decision that ended up working better than they themselves projected. They opted to transform the car instead of correcting it, and in that risk they found an advantage that the rest do not fully understand right now. We are not talking about a team that needs specific conditions to perform. We are talking about a car that expanded its operating window, that can adapt, that can evolve, and that has also already proven to be competitive since its first real appearance. The engineers made it clear between the lines. This package is just the beginning. There is still room, there are still things to optimize, there is still performance to unlock. And if that's true, then what we saw in Miami could be just a fraction of SF20SIX's true potential. So the conclusion is forceful. Ferrari not only took a step forward, it took a leap that can define the entire 2026 season. Now the pressure changes sides. They are no longer the ones who pursue. It is the others who have to understand, react, and try to reach something that suddenly appeared and that, for now, seems to be out of reach. And with this there is one last open question. One that will mark everything that is to come. Are we simply seeing a brilliant improvement, or the beginning of a dominance that could mark a new era in Formula One? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.